Hello, and thanks for looking back at the channel. So the Gaugemaster is on its side. I've finally got the new MOSFET. Here it is. Easy to put in, just 3 legs and a screw to secure it to the case. I've already removed the nut and insulating piece from this. The white paste is heat conductive paste, which we shall put a little bit on. Helps draw the heat out of the IC into the case. So I'm hoping this is going to stop my overheating issue. Now if it doesn't, I've got someone in mind to contact who has a great deal of knowledge about these controllers. So that will be the next step if I fail here. Now a few of you commented about the tank locos in the last video, the N2s in particular, that the modified chassis derived from this. Now I did run this on the Super 4 main line some time ago. It's a really nice Wrenn R1, and indeed this chassis is the basis for the N2 modification. So where did this all start? That's Wrenn 2207. I am going to be running a couple of different versions of this today if I have success with the controller, even if I don't have success with the controller, so that's what will be on the tracks later. But where did this all start? Well, here's where it started. Now I'm not going into any depth on this loco today. This example needs a restoration, but it is the Hornby Dublo R1, and indeed Hornby Dublo developed this chassis and Wrenn carried it on. It's a great loco. I think the first and possibly only plastic bodied steam loco that Hornby Dublo ever made. And I guess we'll take a look at this sometime in the future, but it'll be the Wrenn versions we look at today. Right, well I think the soldering iron is warm, so I'm going to have a go now at seeing whether I can get the solder off the legs. Now I'm looking at these 3 connections. I don't know whether you can see that. I've got my solder sucker and I'm going to try and commence work. So it is indeed nice and warm. Now it's a little bit tricky holding everything in place. So a couple of attempts at just warming these legs up and sucking the solder off. Got to be really careful I don't damage the tracks. Okay, well I'm just going to work on this, so I'll probably cut to when I've finished this in a minute, because I don't want this video to get too boring. So I'll be back with you once I've got this component loosened out. Okay, well look, that's, if I try and get this into the shot, that's the original part now removed. I don't really want to get this heat conductive paste on my fingers. It's not brilliant stuff, so I'm just going to go and clean that off, and then we'll be back to get the new MOSFET fitted. Okay, well hopefully you can see in my hands now the old and the new. I've bent the legs of the new accordingly, so I'll just discard this old one, and I'm going to attempt to just get the 3 legs of the new through the circuit board. Now this might be a bit fiddly, so just bear with me. I mean really, I think this is a job that should have been done with the controller all apart, but it's sometimes good to try and just get these things without taking too much apart. Now it is very fiddly, so you'll have to excuse me if I'm blocking the camera. this might take a few attempts. Now I can see how it's got to go, but there is just not the hugest amount. Now I do believe I might have been lucky and got the legs through, so what I'm going to do now is just get them through a fraction more. There they are. Now just need to try and keep the job fairly clean. Right, well I'm happy with the way the legs are sticking through the circuit board. We've been lucky, there's no damage to the tracks on the PCB, so I'm going to get the soldering iron warmed up and make those 3 connections. Okay, well the soldering iron's warm again, so I'm going to make these connections one by one. I'm just going to try and get the solder. Now that did just move then, but let's get some solder on one leg. I'm going to have to try and reposition that, so I'm going to just get this little screwdriver in and just see if I can get the leg through. That was a bit unfortunate, that was. Okay, well that's one leg soldered now. I'm just going to re-level the component. There. Okay, well I guess with one leg soldered we'll be less likely to knock it, so I'm going to solder the other outside leg now. Just trying to get the soldering iron has gone a bit, there we go, that's beautiful. Excellent. I'm going to remake the one I've just done, and then I'm going to redo, well, the third one in the centre. There we go. Okay, well that's the soldering all done, and it looks quite nice. Very happy with that. So I just need to get some of this heat conductive paste behind the component and get it tightened down. Now that is going to be done off camera, so we'll come back once that's done. Okay, well the component's in, but I think I slightly put a little bit too much paste, so I've got a cotton bud here. I'm just going to remove the excess to tidy up the job. So I'm just going to run that along there, and then just get in here and do the same along the other side. Oh, well, I've got friendly wooden cotton buds, and they appear to have not the strongest shaft. I'm glad that wasn't left inside my ear or something, though you're not supposed to put them in there, are you? Anyway, job is all done, so next thing now is to give it a try. So I'll just get the case on and we'll see how it performs. Okay, well the controller is all back together and undergoing testing. So what I've got now on the upward main line, on the upward side of the controller, which is fault free, is I've got a Hornby Dublo Barnstable. Now the reason I've got this on is because it needs a bit of attention and it's hungry for current. So if I just show you my ammeter there and voltmeter on the upward side of the track, you can see it's drawing over 0.6 of an amp. Now that's going to be ideal to test the controller. So I'm going to drive this round now. It's running perfectly on the upward. So I need to get this on the downward line. So I'm just going to go round and find a crossover. So let me just slow down here. So I've got a crossover just in front of this train. That's J. So I'm now going to drive this onto the downward line. Now it's going to be facing the wrong direction on the downward line, but that won't matter for testing. So let's just get that completely on. There we go. So I'm switching off the upward side of the controller, putting the crossover J back to mainline running, and here we go. We're going to test the downward side. So set the loco running. .64, 0.66 of an amp. And here comes this Barnstable, drawing far too much current. And so far the controller is not cutting out. It would probably be cutting out by now. So whether it's fixed or not, I'm not going to say yet. I certainly want to see a few more circuits. There we go. So not as easy as I thought, of course, and if I look back down there, absolutely nothing, and the controller is red here for overload, so I'll switch it off and immediately the ammeter comes back to life. So this must be something to do with the overload circuitry rather than the MOSFET, the power side of it. So I am indeed going to need a little bit more knowledge, so I'll probably be contacting Mike at Model Railways Unlimited, because he's done a lot of experimentation with this type of Gaugemaster, and I think he probably knows a lot more about the circuitry. So it's been a few seconds. Let's see if it'll start up again. There we go. So it's only drawing 0.53 of an amp. Now I'm just going to switch this off because I accidentally put it in reverse and I might derail, so I'm just going to switch it back on the other way. Oh, immediately it won't go. Look at that. You see it started to draw about 0.8 of an amp and that overloaded it immediately. So let's just try once more. No, it cuts out immediately once it gets warm, so something isn't quite working correctly. Now I can demonstrate this because I have a couple of other crossovers, so let's just get crossover H activated, which should enable me to come onto the upward side of the controller and move this loco. And indeed we're off. So I'm going to get this back onto the upward main line, so I need to operate crossover J now, and then I'm going to attempt to reverse this back. So see if the wagons behave themselves over the points. So I'm now back onto the upward side, crossover for mainline running, and then we'll set this forwards and demonstrate the fact that the upward side of the controller is working okay. So just follow this round. Lovely loco this. I think it probably just wants a jolly good overhaul and a remag. Running quite nicely. Let's get back to the meter. Drawing, I mean, as it warms up it is actually drawing a little bit less, 0.6 of an amp now. But this upward side of the controller is not cutting out, so it'll be interesting to try and determine exactly why the controller won't allow any more than 0.6, 0.7 of an amp. I think they should be good for at least an amp actually. I mean, before the fault I was double heading locos and drawing regularly over 3/4 of an amp with no problems at all. Well, another thing that hasn't quite gone my way, what with the Princess Royal, and we'll just take a look at the body shell on that in a minute. And now the controller The railway's throwing a few challenges at me at the moment. Right, well that's running fine. I'm just going to bring that in to the station. Well, actually I'm not. I'm going to, because we're going to want to run some little R1s. Let's put this away. So I'll just go into the station. Just go past points F. Now I need to locate the switch. So hopefully now I can reverse this into the long siding by the station. There we go. So just going into the long siding. I'm just going to back it up towards the buffers. Great stuff. So points F now for mainline running. That leaves the main lines clear. So we'll be back in a minute to run a couple of Wrenn R1 tank locos. Okay, well I've moved a few items around, but let's just have a quick look at the poor old Princess Royal. I've attacked it just very gently with this fiberglass brush, which fetches off this white residue nicely. Won't do anything where the black paint is, but it doesn't seem to be damaging the very sensitive lining and number or the nameplate. So it might be that I'll treat myself to 10 minutes each lunchtime just getting another section cleaned and do it bit by bit, repaint the black bits, and then maybe just a coat of satin varnish. I don't know, we'll see. I'm still treating that as a bit fluid. Okay, so let's get some running. Now I've got a couple of boxes to show you. Wrenn W2203, that's an R1, 060 tank, shell livery. So that's going to be pulling a lubricating oil train, and then a really early box. Look at that, that's one of the first Wrenn boxes, and it is smudged, but take it from me, that's 2206, 060 tank, and I can just perhaps show you, if I can get my fingers inside it, this instruction sheet, lovely crisp instruction sheet which came out of the BR Black item, 2206, a 12 volt DC electric for 2-rail track. Great writing. So let's take a look down the double track loop. There's a milk train with this excellent Triang coach we haven't seen before. Probably talk about that a bit more next week. And here's the BR Black Wrenn R1 ready for duty. The southern one we saw a bit earlier is just parked with a couple of Pullman coaches. I'm not running that today. And the shell one's on the far side of the layout, but I'm going back to the controller now. The faulty Gaugemaster certainly will be able to run this little tank because it draws very little current, so I'm going to move it out onto the downward line. Just easing it away out onto the main line, and then I shall set points B for mainline running, and there goes our downward service. And as it goes into the station, it'll be time to bring out the upward service. And we'll take a look at both of them now I've got them running. So let's just see if we can spot the shell liveried train. Excellent looking silver loco this, and it's pulling a rake of 4 Shell lubricating oil tank wagons. They make lovely noises, these Wrenn locos. And as it goes into the station, the BR Black one is coming the other way, so let's have a look at that. They've got great gearing, these R1s. Hornby Dublo got that right. I think Wrenn carried it over. And I noticed when I was running the N2s the other day, they're not super speedy, but they've got a nice low speed range. So look at that. That's great, isn't it? So it seems like we're having a bit of a tank theme the last week or so. And I might carry that on next week. I'm really enjoying these small locos. They just look great on the layout, don't they, with slightly smaller rakes of wagons. That Cheyenne Guards van jumping about a bit on the diamond but staying on the track. Well, I've got a bit to think about. Carry on with the Princess Royal. I mean, the controller's working fine, so long as I don't want to draw any more than about 0.3, 0.4 of an amp. But not really good enough for my bigger locos, so I need to get on with that. But I've had fun, and that's what model railways, model trains, it's all about, isn't it? Just takes you away from the real world for a little while, and you just have a bit of fun. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the items and what's been going on in this video, and I look forward to seeing what I can find for next week. Hopefully some updates on the controller and maybe a couple more smaller locos, we'll see. But for now I'm going to leave you with these two excellent Wrenn R1s. We'll watch them go around the layout a couple more times, but until the next video I'll say goodbye.